Hello there, it's Jan here at JB Crafts. Thank you for joining me on the channel today. And we're back with project number 4 for the Christmas series this year. So 12 days of Christmas, 2 projects a week, 6 weeks leading up to Christmas. So we're on week 2. We've done 3 projects already, and we're back to a card project today. And I've gone very sort of contemporary Christmas today, so not traditional colours. We've done a little bit of traditional in the previous videos. I wanted to go a little bit more contemporary, and a slightly different fold again. It's essentially a gatefold card, but I've staggered the fold this time. Instead of a traditional gatefold coming straight down the centre, I've staggered it and gone slightly wider on one side than I have on the other, and then we've got this panel to sort of hold it closed. So my decoration's on the front panel, bit of pattern paper. I'll show you the this is a new paper pad. I'll show you the paper pad. It's absolutely gorgeous. And then it all opens up, and inside we've got our sentiment and a place to write a message inside. Little bit of decoration just to link it. You can decorate the extra panels here if you wish. Depends, you know, what sort of paper and how much you've got of it. But yeah, that was my design for today. And then it all stands beautifully once it's been gifted, and it is an irregular size today, I must admit, because I was aiming to get this out of a piece of A4 here in the UK. So it measures 5 3/4 by 5 1/2, so it's not quite square, but it sort of gives the illusion of being square. But you could adapt this sort of offset gatefold onto any style of card, any size of card really. So let's get into the tutorial, and I'll show you how I've popped it together. A couple of simple score lines, folds, and then the rest of it really is sort of matting and layering, and then my decoration is die cuts today. A little bit of ink, along with a sentiment and some embellishments. So yeah, fairly straightforward. So I've started off with a piece of 11.5 inches by 5 1/2. So our A4 here is about 11 3/4 and a fly's eyelash. So I've just chopped a little bit off the length of it to get the 11.5, and that gives me a halfway point at 5 3/4. And then height wise, I didn't want to go quite square. I don't know how I decided on 5 1/2, but I did, and that's what I ended up with. So I'm happy with the finished sample. And then what we're going to do is pop it in our scoreboard on the short side, and I'm going to score at 2 1/4 inches in this way. Okay, so I'm going to come across 1, 2 1/4. So one side is going to measure that 2 1/4. Then I'm going to flip it round, and I'm going to do the other side at 3 1/2, and those two measurements make my 5 3/4 inch width. So this one's going to be at 1, 2, 3 1/2, and when we fold these should meet nicely along that line, and then this section will be the 5 3/4 inch section to make the card size. So just those two simple score lines today on that piece, and then we're going to fold and burnish those. Now whenever I'm doing a gatefold, normally when I'm working out, I'll fold and score and fold and burnish, but what I'm going to do is just do these gently on the score lines. And I'm working on my Centura Pearl again today. It's got that gorgeous shimmer on the outside of it. Nice. I like this for Christmas cards. It's got a little bit of that touch of luxury. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to push it together and make sure that I've got this sort of locked in where everything meets up. So I just want to make sure that I'm running straight along this bottom edge, and then secondly that one is going to meet. And then when I've got those in place, I can then start and work that fold line in. Okay, and then I'm going to bring in my bone folder, holding those in place, and give that a really good burnish into place. The same at this side, making sure that everything's straight, everything meets, and then again get that burnished into place. And you should have that beautiful sort of fold there that meets nicely in the middle. You can see that just edges up to each other, and then we've got that offset gatefold. Now you might want to leave your card like this and decorate it just as a gatefold, maybe pop a belly band around it or something like that, but I've added that panel on the front just to help sort of keep it closed and keep it flat. So I've created a couple of panels, and honestly this paper pad I was out shopping. I popped out to the range the other day, which is one of the it's actually a home decor store, but they have a craft section, and I came across this and I couldn't resist it. It's absolutely beautiful, and their paper pads are so reasonable. I think they retail at about £5. But Christmas rose gold, and it's got this, I love the contemporary look of the black with the pink and the white, and then the rose gold foiling. So let me just pop that to one side and I'll give you a quick flick through. So it's honestly, you can see that rose gold foiling on there is beautiful. You get 2 of each sheet. That rose gold foiling again on the black. This is going to look, so I might make a box with this one and have this as the box lid, reinforce it as the box lid. And then you've got this one again, you know, I mean, yeah, it's almost a snowflake on there, but I think you could get away with using that one at any time. The little gingerbread people on the pink. This is the one that I've used for today's project. And again, this one's not foiled, it's almost glittered. So it's got like a clear glitter over the snowflakes. They've got like a glossy finish to them. And then again, that foiling. The holly's all foiled. Love this one with the little presents on. Baubles, another black one. Absolutely gorgeous. This is a nice fun one as well. And then the black with the pink glitter. Excuse me. So yeah, if you're here in the UK, I just think it's a really, I like something different. I love the traditional colours for Christmas, but I love the contemporary as well. And I thought, yeah, with the rose gold, it's just that bit different, because I nearly always use gold as an accent for Christmas. But what I've done this time is I've actually managed to get some, I've got some rose gold mirror card out of one of my paper pads, one of my solids paper pads, and this matched it beautifully. So what I've done is I've created my panels ready, because I wanted to focus on that top section. So we're going to put these on the front of the gatefold, and I'm going to have one on this side and one on this side, like so. So the right hand side, when I've just come down 1/4 of an inch, so I've got 5 1/4 in height by 3 1/4 width, and then I've come down 1/8 of an inch. I just wanted a skinny border. I love the mirror card, but I just like that subtle edging rather than too big a border. And then the same on this side, we've got the 5 1/4 inch high, which is 1/4 of an inch shorter than the card, and 2 inches because we measured at 2 1/4. So we're going to stick those down, and I am going to risk my all-purpose glue. The reason I say risk it is because this is solvent based. If you're working on a coated cardstock, which the Centura Pearl is, you just need to be careful not to get it squeezing out, because it can interfere with the surface. So what I'm going to do is not go too close to the edges there. And then I'm going to pop this on this side, and I've just left, there'll be a little 1/8 of an inch border all the way around there, like so. And then we'll do the same on this side. So by not going too close to the edge, when I actually press this down to seal it, the glue's not going to sort of shoot out of the sides of the panel. Hopefully, that's the plan. So yeah, I'm going to line this one up as well, and you've got the same border around that side. So as I say, options there for that one, because you could then, like I said, make a belly band with a nice sort of decoration on the front of the belly band. Then I've just leant on that and moved that, but that's the beauty of having the wet glue. So I'm going to leave that one to dry while we focus on that centre panel. So I'm just going to put that to one side, and then we're going to focus on this panel with all the detail on. So this is another piece of Centura Pearl, and this one measures 4 1/4 across, 3 1/2 inches tall, and this is the piece that's going to end up being the main front section of the card. And then I've created an extra layer in this one just because it was the focal point. I've still used the rose gold, which measured 4 1/2 by 3 3/4, and then I've just added a layer of pink in there as well, because we're going to work with the pinks and the neutral tones. So this is all going to sit together when we've finished it. And then what I did was cut a second panel of this, and then I've just free cut a little snowbank that we're going to pop on here, just so that I've got somewhere to ground the stag and pop the trees in as well. So all I did was cut it at the same width, and then all I've done with my scissors is literally just curved it through, and I've got some foam tape on the back of here. But before we actually do that, I want to pop some ink on here. So I am just going to grab my mat there, just so that I can keep the desk nice and clean from ink. And I have got just a really pale pink. I've gone for sponge sugar in the oxide, and if any of you use this pearlescent cardstock, it takes the inks beautifully. It's not something you think about with a pearlescent finish, but it really does take the inks nicely. And again, because we're going for that contemporary look, I'm actually going to just bring this in to add a bit of colour in the background. So again, as I say, it's a very, very pale pink. I didn't want too much going on, but I just wanted to bring it as if basically it's the sky. But because we're working in those contemporary colours, I'm actually going to bring it in pink rather than a different colour. Now, if this is not your kind of thing, you could incorporate normal sort of colours into here. You could do a grey sky in the background. You could do sort of a purpley lilac-y tone. You could use the black, depending on what you wanted that finished sort of effect to look like. So I'm just building it up on that top edge there around the corners just to get some depth, and then I faded it out towards the bottom where the snowbank is going to go, and I think that's looking fine. So I'll just pop that back to one side. If you don't have the oxides, the inks work well on here as well. If you've got the distress inks, they actually work well. So I'm just going to give that a little tiny spritz and just clean that off so that we don't end up covered in excess ink. And then that's done its job. So you can go down there. And you can see, hopefully now, you can see the difference where, you know, we've got that sort of division between the pearlescent card still showing and then the matte effect of that Distress Oxide ink. And then what we're going to do is we're going to pop this one on here just to give it a little bit of depth. So I've got some foam pads. They're about 2mm foam pads here. I'm just going to pop along the bottom just to raise this. Now, if you don't want the dimension in here, you can actually use this flat. It doesn't have to be raised up, but I'm literally going to line this up with that bottom corner and make sure it's running straight. Just lift that up so that I can see there, and then stretch it over to that second side. Yeah, and there we go. So we've just got that little bit of definition, and there's a little bit of white left in the back that suggests sort of like another hill in the background. And then what I've done is I've used a couple of my dies, and these are just out of an old set that I'd got in my stash. There are some more trees, but they were bigger and they were too big for what I wanted to use. So I've actually used this size, and I've cut a couple of these out of the pink cardstock, which was the same pink that I'd used in the background here. And then I've also cut my little stag, and I've cut him out of some sort of neutral coloured card, and then I've done one out of craft card and just staggered them a little bit. If I pop them on there, you can see, just to give it that illusion of depth. It's got some sort of shadow behind it. The craft card's darker than this neutral cardstock that I've used. So we're going to pop these on and start that detail. Now, before I put the trees on, I am going to use some ink, and I wanted a little bit darker ink for this one, so I've just gone for my Victorian Velvet, and all I'm going to do is just add a little bit just to give again the tree some definition. Now, I did think about putting glitter on these, but I'm not the biggest fan of glitter. Certainly not in its raw state. I don't mind it in things like the glitter glues and things, but yeah, I always end up with it everywhere, and then for days you're just sparkling away because it's just got everywhere. So if you have any tricks for the glitter, do let me know in the comments below. But yeah, I thought just to give it a bit of definition, and you could do this with a white ink pad if you want it to look like snow. If you've got those sort of puffy pastes, you could add some dimension or some texture paste to make it look like snow. But I decided just on the ink there, and I think you can see it just adds that little bit of depth to them, a bit of warmth with that extra ink. So I'll just pop that one back up there out of the way. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have him stood at the front, and then we're going to have one of the trees in the background, and then the other one in the foreground, like so. So nice and straightforward. So I'm going to use my acrylic glue for this. And I also want to build up some dimension behind the stag, because it's gone over these foam squares on here. I am actually going to pop some little ones behind him so that he's got that extra dimension. So just along the top of here and on his head. And then I'm going to double these up, because these are only little narrow 1mm ones, whereas the bigger ones that I use, the square ones, were 2mm. So what I'm going to do is double these up so that they overlap that little snowbank. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3 of those on there. And he should be the right height then to balance nicely without anything sort of caving in. So I'm going to do the trees first, and like I said, I want to go with one of them in the background there. So we'll just use, and I'm nearly at the end of my this is the first one. If you've been following me, you know that I swapped my glues out a little while ago, and I bought 2 of the Nouveau glue on offer, and this is the first one that's just coming to an end now. It's lasted ages. So yeah, I'm going to position this one at the front here, and then I want to drop this one in behind and tuck it down the back here. So probably about there. Looks a nice landing spot for that one. And then we're going to do the same with this one, again with that same glue. So this is just an acrylic glue. I tend to refer to it as my embellishment glue because it does grab and starts to cure quicker than the all-purpose glue, which is why I like it. And then this one's going to come more to the front, so it looks as if there's a bit of dimension going on there, a bit of perspective. Okay, and then him we're going to pop over here. Now I didn't want him to look as if he was sort of just floating on the snowbank, so I'm going to ground him a little bit, and I've picked out one of my tri-blend markers that's a very similar pinky tone to what's going on here, and I'm just going to take the mid-tone, I'm going to pop him where I want him to sit, and then just literally little tiny scribbly bits as if he's left some sort of indentation there in the snow, and all that will do is ground him so that it looks as if he's meant to be there rather than just sort of floating around. So I'm going to take the backs off the extra foam pads there, and then we're going to put a little bit of glue across his feet because they will be stuck to that snowbank. So I want some glue down here. And then I'm not too worried about his antlers. And then all I'm going to do is position him as if he sort of stood in the snow there. And then press that one down. And I'm just going to clip that on there just for a second while the glue dries there. I've got a little bit of seepage, so we'll just get rid of that bit, a bit there as well. And there we go, and then just clip that across. And then I've got some extra embellishments, so I wanted to add some snowflakes. So these are just, I've got couldn't tell you which ones these are because I ended up grouping all my snowflakes together. I've got several different cards of snowflakes, and I thought, you know what, they would be better all together. So I've actually got lots of them on these magnetic sheets now from different places that I've accumulated over the years. So yeah, anything that you've got snowflake wise, you know, Christmas they come out, they're a really nice addition instead of your butterflies and your usual sort of trimmings. And then I've just embossed in white a little winter wishes sentiment. I thought that was perfect for this kind of design. It could be a birthday card, you know, it could be a winter birthday card. It doesn't have to be for Christmas. And all I'm going to do is pop this one across here, which will then, because we've still got the tree floating round at the minute, so by just popping this one off to the side here, it's going to anchor the tree as well as add my sentiment in there. And then I just want to add the snowflakes, as I say, as an extra embellishment. And I'm going to go with the white over the pink so that they could stand out nicely. I've just cut these out of some scrap that was left over of the Centura Pearl. And then I'm just going to add a little bit. It doesn't need a lot of glue on these. And we're going to pop these, some of them, onto the design and maybe a little bit off the edge as well on there. And then I've got a little tiny one. I've just popped some neutral coloured pearls in the centre of these. And then I'll pop a little bit in the middle of that one as well, ready, because my glue's very eager to get out of there this morning. So I'm just going to dab that one off because there was quite a big blob came out of there. And this one's going to come down here. And again, I've gone for a cluster of 3 of them. 3s always seem to work well. So we've got our 2 trees and the stag for the 3 embellishments in the front. And then we've got our 3 snowflakes, which are just going to build up that little bit of extra detail. Now, I don't mind that they've gone off the edge slightly. And we're going to pop this onto that mat anyway. So we had that extra mat layer that we were going to mount this onto here. Okay. So I just want to make sure that that's not curled too much. And then I'm going to use the all-purpose glue again for this one. Just on the back of here. Just lost my snowflake, as the glue wasn't dry. So I'm just going to slide that one in there. And again, it's got a really tiny little pink border around it. And then, excuse me, but we need you back on there. So yeah, I just want to get that so that that pink is just showing, peeking out along with the rose gold. And then ideally, you would need to leave this one to dry. But because we're on camera, I am going to pop this onto the front of the card. Now I'm going to use some tape to anchor this onto the card, just so that I've got a good grip here on this side. So bring the one in that was drying, and then we want this to be sort of pretty much centered now in the design. So what I'm going to do is flip it over, and then I only want to put tape on the side that's overlapping the left hand edge. So I'm going to go roughly about there, and then again on that outside edge, and then because this is an opening mechanism, I am going to put a little bit in the middle as well there, just to make sure that we're going to get a really nice secure finish on that when it goes onto the card. So normally I would burnish all that down, but again I've got the embellishments underneath, and then we'll take the release paper off there. Get your card in its orientation. There's no reason why you couldn't do it this way if you wish. You know, you could have the larger piece at this side, but I wanted the bulk of this to be overlapping that large piece so that it fell nice and flat. And then I'm just going to hover this over the whole design, looking here and here and here and here to get it around about even. And then we're going to press this down on that side there, and it will just stick to that left hand side so that you shouldn't have any tape showing under here, and you've got that closure then that holds this side down. So a really nice finish on it. And again, as I say, just so that rose gold is just a really nice touch for this. And as I say, it could be a winter birthday card. It doesn't have to be a Christmas card. It could equally be Christmas. You could change the sentiment on here. And then I've added a couple of extra pearls on this one just because I could. I've got one here and just an odd one here. So I've got a cluster of 5. I've still got the odd numbers on the one that I did earlier, the sample. And then, as I say, inside, I've cut a piece on the inside. This is just a piece of plain white cardstock, which is 5 1/4 inches square. No, 5 by 5 1/4 inches. And then stamp my sentiment. This was scrap that was left over. I decided to just do a little bit of decoration. I did this bit first. I often link the inserts to the front of the card, put one of those little snowflakes, but use the gold the rose gold mirror card. But then it was bugging me a little bit that the back of the mirror card was a slightly different colour. And my first reaction was to put a whole piece of paper over here to cover it, but it didn't quite look right. So I thought, we'll just focus the eye on that little bit of pattern rather than the fact that it's a discoloration. I don't really think it matters. It's just me and my OCD. So yeah, we've got that finished design, 5 3/4 by 5.5, and it will stand up beautifully to display for that either birthday or whatever occasion sentiment that you're doing it for. I've done it as a Christmas card, and I love the fact, as I say, with those contemporary colours. So that's project number 4 in the series. We're sort of working our way through. Christmas is sort of coming up fast, I think, now, especially at the end of this week when we sort of move into December. It's going to go sort of really quickly. So yeah, I've got some more projects lined up for you are coming up, and I will see you back here shortly for those. So yeah, if you've enjoyed the tutorial today, consider giving it a thumbs up for me. It does help with the channel. Welcome. I've had quite an influx of new subscriptions over the last week or so, so welcome to those of you that have just joined the channel. I appreciate your support, and I hope you continue to enjoy the content. And yeah, if you want to leave a comment in the comment section down below, I will reply to those in due course, and I'll see you back here for another tutorial very soon. So enjoy your day now. Bye bye.